Released in August of 2020, Rise of the Duelist was a core set in the TCG that for the first time in a very long time did not have a single world premiere card. All of the extra cards in the set were from the OCG, they were imports. Then in Phantom Rage, the set right after that, we got a bunch of world premiere cards that people were really excited about. The Mutants were the big new archetype. They had 14 cards in Phantom Rage, if I remember correctly, and that was really cool. However, the Mutants did not perform very well in a tournament setting, and people kind of forgot about them almost immediately. Then in Blazing Vortex, we got a new announcement that there would be a brand new world premiere archetype once again. Now, the Warrock reveal happened in many stages. The very first time that anyone learned about Warrocks was when the Lightning Overdrive summary was posted. In the Lightning Overdrive summary, it said, more cards for the Warrock world premiere theme introduced in Blazing Vortex. Prior to that, no one had ever heard about the Warrock archetype, so already people were hyped for this deck. People thought it would be a new rock deck, which makes sense, it is called Warrocks. And then just a few days later, Konami posted the Blazing Vortex video on their channel, and they showed off a few artworks of the Warrock archetype and talked about some upcoming content creator reveals. But besides that, the player base had no idea how good or how bad the Warrocks would be. Then a few days later, between the Konami sponsored Warrock reveal video and also the Konami sponsored Blazing Vortex opening videos, people quickly figured out that Warrocks weren't really that good. And it's not that the cards were unplayably bad. I mean, certainly by competitive standards they were, but they had some merit. They had a couple cool interactions, even if there wasn't enough to actually build a deck around them. And that's not to mention that people knew we were getting more support out of Lightning Overdrive, so already people were saying things like, maybe the first wave is just laying the groundwork and the second wave will fix the deck. Blazing Vortex had 5 Warrock monsters and 2 Warrock spells. Now, some of the cards were more playable than others. The field spell, for example, was probably the best card, and it still kind of is even to this day. People also kind of talked about using Warrock Gakdos as an extender in a deck that plays Earth Warrior monsters, but realistically there wasn't a big reason to do that. There's already so many Warrior monster extenders that Gakdos wasn't that big of a deal. The rest of the cards were pretty trashy. I mean, it's not only that the deck is battle focused. I think a battle focused deck could theoretically work in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! If you made the cards very powerful, but these cards had pretty bad effects even when they did manage to work. You really had no good turn 1 play, you had no good going second options, and that was pretty tough to play in a modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament. Warrocks quickly became the community's go-to punching bag, with people making tons of memes and videos about the deck, my favorite of which was when Farfa played Goat Control, a deck from 2005, against Warrocks, and he actually managed to win. But the question in the back of everyone's mind throughout all of this was, how good will the Lightning Overdrive support really be? Because time and time again, especially with world premiere archetypes, we've seen them start out pretty much unplayably bad and then turn into tournament winning decks later on when they got new support. So people were willing to wait until Lightning Overdrive to really call this deck good or bad. Obviously, with only its first wave of support, it was not a good deck, and it never was going to be a good deck. Sure, you could get some wins if you threw in a ton of trap cards into the strategy, but you weren't really winning with the Warrock cards. You were hoping you drew a bunch of traps and maybe drew like one Warrock normal summon to do some damage with. Later on, when we got the Lightning Overdrive content creator reveal videos, people were pretty worried because Warrocks were not mentioned at all. Now, to be fair, there were no world premiere cards mentioned in any of the content creator reveals as far as I remember, so Warrocks weren't exactly the only cards that were missing. I saw a ton of speculation out there. Maybe the Warrocks were so broken that they didn't want anyone to talk about them and they'd rather have people get surprised by them in the box opening videos, or perhaps the Warrocks were so bad that they didn't want anyone making fun of the content creator that had to reveal them. In reality, once we started had seen box openings of Lightning Overdrive so we could see all of the new Warrock cards, I think the Warrock support fell somewhere in between. Warrock Dignity and Warrock Spirit, two brand new quick play spell cards, were probably the biggest highlights out of these new reveals, not only because they were pretty good on their own in a Warrock deck, but they were also great because their existence made Warrock Forsha a lot better. Also, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I have watched like 5 different deck profiles and every single person pronounces this card differently, so who really knows, but that's my best guess. Previously, the only good target for this searching ability was Warrock Mountain, but searching Warrock Mountain after Warrock Mountain didn't really matter that much. I mean, certainly you still played 3 of this card in those older Warrock decks from Blazing Vortex, but now it had a lot more utility. Not to mention, you also had Warrock Generations, a pretty decent trap card that special summons a Warrock monster from your deck. But surprisingly, those weren't the only good Warrock cards in this set. The new level 7 boss monster was pretty good, the new level 4 monster was pretty good, and Mamud is not terrible, I guess, if you really wanted to play that. So Lightning Overdrive was a lot better for Warrock players than Blazing Vortex ever was. You had way more playable cards, but as you guys can probably already guess, these cards were not enough to take Warrocks to the next level, even not to a rogue level, which is pretty much the only place that people want this deck to be at. So after 2 waves of support for this new world premiere archetype, why are Warrocks still terrible? Well, it comes down to a number of problems. The deck is not only battle focused, but the effects you trigger are not very good, especially considering how hard they are to use. The deck has very little in terms of extenders, it can't really play against any interruptions either, and there really isn't a good board you're trying to end on. If you played Warrocks as a combo deck, well, they're going to be a worse version of Six Samurais or Gokis or Infernal Knights, all warrior combo decks that are a lot better than Warrocks. If you play them as a control deck, which it seems like most people are, then they are a worse version of pretty much every control deck in the format. The Warrock deck does not have enough tools to be a good combo deck or a good control deck, so it falls somewhere in between, but the cards are so weak that there's really not a reason to play them in any sort of competitive deck. When it comes to these cards, I have so many questions that I simply do not know the answer to. For example, why do they float when they're sent from the monster zone to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect instead of, I don't know, by any card effect, or perhaps by battle at the very least? I get not wanting to make them trigger whenever they're sent to the graveyard. That would make them like Goki 2.0, but at the very least, let them trigger when they're destroyed by battle. Why does Warrock Spirit have so many restrictions if you summon the monster in attack position? Does it really need to negate its effects? Does it really need to make the card not be able to attack directly? Would Warrocks be broken without these restrictions on Warrock Spirit? Definitely not, but they would be a lot more playable. Why does Warrock Big Blow have an activation condition that requires your opponent to basically never read your cards? If the Warrock effects only trigger when they're sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, they're never going to do that, so Warrock Big Blow can basically never activate. In my opinion, Warrock Big Blow could have just said, pop 2 cards your opponent controls without targeting if you control a Warrock monster, and even then the Warrock deck probably wouldn't have been that good, but at least they would have had a very good trap card. Someone on stream the other day asked what Warrocks would need to become a competitive deck, and I honestly didn't know the answer. You would have to give them a crazy card, something that's like E-Telly for 5 Warrocks, and then you can't special summon from the extra deck, and even at that point, I'm not sure if a card that ridiculous would be enough. Warrocks are terrible, pretty much everyone already knows that. I'm sure people in this comment section will argue against it because that always happens, but let's be real, Warrocks might be one of the worst world premiere archetypes ever revealed. They would need absolutely ridiculous cards to ever have a chance of being competitive. Now that might happen in the future someday, and that would be hilarious to see, but I'm not sure if it's going to happen. Would Warrocks have been broken with the suggestions that I just gave, ignoring the E-Telly for 5, of course? No, they probably wouldn't have been broken if they had better floating effects and if the spells and traps didn't have so many many tough restrictions, but they would have at least been a fun casual deck. Maybe they even could have been a rogue deck if you played enough good hand traps or good trap cards to make a decent control deck with. I don't know, that's pretty much all I have to say for today's video. I just wanted to go over the history of War Rocks and talk about why they're so bad, why they were such a big flop. Let me know in the comment section below what you think Konami could do to make War Rocks better in the future, or should they just give up on the archetype entirely? Let me know in the comment section below, but anyway, I will see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.